Finally going to get started here. First off, thank you all for coming. My name is Pat Jennings with the Historical Society. I'm here to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Robert Vose of Murrieta and Points North. For those of you who don't know, Robert was born and raised here in Murrieta. Family roots in Murrieta go back to the early 1900s. Robert grew up here in the 1960s, and part of his legacy to us is a huge amount of photographs he took during the time nobody else was taking pictures here in Murrieta. So fortunately, we've added that to the archives of the Murrieta Historical Society. Also, in recent months, Robert also does a lot of line drawings for us. He's done Ray's Cafe, the Hunt House, and several other places here in Murrieta. We recently used one of his vintage 60s photos for a postcard of the grain elevator. But tonight, we're going to introduce Robert for his career in the Air Force, being it's Veterans Week. Robert was in the Air Force in the late 1960s, 1969, 1968, 69, 69, 70. 69, 70, Robert was in Da Nang, Vietnam. So tonight, he's here to give us a talk on his experiences in sunny Southeast Asia. So without further ado, here's Robert.
All right. Well, thank you for showing up. I will also want to just say thank you to all my family and friends who are here tonight, and especially my son Nathaniel and his wife Amy. They drove all the way from Northern California down here, and I appreciate that a lot. So anyway, as Pat said, I'm a Murrieta native boy, born and raised here, and it was a lot smaller, of course, when I was here. It was like just a little village. And I went to school here. In fact, I attended the school across the street when it first opened up, in 5th grade. And then I went to high school in Lake Elsinore, which is the closest high school here. Took with us and went to high school there, graduated in 66, and of course the war was going on full throttle. And joined the Air Force in 68 through 72. And I was in Vietnam, as Pat said, 69 through 70. And first off, I want to ask is, how many veterans do we have here today? Great. Good. And how many were in combat or overseas in a situation? Come on, John. Good. So I want to make a point that no matter what you did or how you did it, everybody had a different experience. That's the one thing I've learned. Everybody has a bubble that they were in. And it doesn't mean that you were more brave or less brave or did more or less. Everybody did their service to their country. And that's the one thing I've learned is everybody have their own stories and their own experiences. And believe me, I consider myself extremely lucky in my experiences that I didn't get killed, maimed, or any other thing. So my story is not blood and gore, but it's interesting stories and things that could have gone south really quick. So everybody enjoy this little story I'm going to be telling here. So I was raised here, went in the military, and went to bomb school in Denver, Colorado. This is my graduating class in bomb school, which was in Lowry Field, Denver. And these are all guys that I went through 9 months of training. And this is just a photo shot of us all together there and seeing how and you can see there, I'm sitting there.
Right there.
Right there.
That looks like a unibrow.
Yeah, the unit across there. Yeah, that's it. And all these guys were really good guys. They did exactly, they all volunteered. They didn't get pushed into it. They all were really good guys and took their job very seriously because we're working with explosives. And to give you an example, one of the days the instructors in a room like this with a table, a square table, there's a bunch of us sitting around the table, and the instructor hands us a thermite grenade, pulls the pin on the thermite grenade, and hands it to us, and says, "Don't let go of the little arm." So sure enough, we had to pass this thing all the way around the room. back to where the pin was. And so we're carefully going around the room. And of course, as you know, human nature, there's always one guy who's not paying attention. And of course, doesn't pay attention, the arm flies off, you hear the 3-second delay of the fuse, and a huge bang. It was a spotting charge. It was a fake grenade. But it said, basically, he turned to all of us and said, that guy just killed you. You've got to learn to trust your people. So those are the kinds of experiences I had at school. We had smart weapons at that time. We were just getting into guided smart weapons and guided munitions and stuff, and we studied all this stuff. But they were not like we have today. Again, the missiles and stuff that were around, the rockets, and we were trained on everything to store and handle from a .22 bullet all the way up to a nuclear weapon. And it was very interesting to learn all that stuff. And then, of course, when you get out of the military, they look at you and they go, forget everything you know. So, when I left bomb school, I actually got transferred to Vandenberg Air Force Base and worked on a gantry crew putting up the Scout rocket. These are some of the stages of the Scout rocket. And those wires running along and all the cabling and stuff, we were in charge of all the explosive bolts, the rocket motors, the auto-destruct. Rocket takes off, heads to LA, we're supposed to blow it up. We were in charge of that. So everything we see in here is I think it launched about a 500-pound satellite. And we got a lot of interesting time to just watch it go off at the gantry and watch other missiles at Vandenberg. It's always interesting to see the missiles take off and see them, what they call orbital eject, going into orbit. Okay, this is a picture of beautiful downtown Da Nang's bomb dump. All the equipment, and what you're looking there is Monkey Mountain. And that's up in that hill is where they did the Bob Hope show. And I didn't get to see the Bob Hope show, I was working. But that's the equipment and everything around it. And Da Nang was nicknamed Rocket City. And there was a reason it was named Rocket City. It's because we had a lot of rocket attacks. Every night, 2 or 3, once in a while, they would just mortar us, rocket us. Sapper's a suicide guy that runs on the base with an explosive and tries to blow things up. Those are the crazy guys. So we're always on our toes. And again, it was like a job. You just did your job and you're young, you're stupid, and you think you're going to live forever. So you just do the job and try to dodge the rockets. But getting there was interesting because we left Norton Air Force Base, which is in San Bernardino at the time. And of course, we get there, and my dad dropped me off. And first thing they say is, oh, it's in the morning, you must be hungry, breakfast. So we ate breakfast. They put us on the plane, flew to Hawaii. Guess what? We get there, you must be hungry, breakfast. So then we get in the plane, we fly to Okinawa. Guess what? It's breakfast time. And then we fly to Da Nang, get off the plane, breakfast time. So I can still remember all these breakfasts and eggs and stuff. But as you get off the plane, the one thing how many people have seen the movie Platoon? You remember the scene when the fresh-faced kid, gets off the plane into Vietnam? The haze, the smoke, the propellers and the noise and stuff. Well, that's pretty dang realistic. Because I just distinctly remember getting off the plane and the stench of the place hitting me. The humidity, the smell. The dump was just down the road, and so was the morgue where they processed the dead bodies, and from the bomb dump. So it was it was a very interesting smell, to say the least. And the JP-4, the fuel from the aircraft. So it was an interesting place to land for the first time. And of course, the first night, they put us in a temporary barracks. And we were, I was on the top floor, top bunk, the tin right here. It was 100 degrees. I was sweating like a dog because I'm from California, no humidity here. And we had 2 rocket attacks that night. So we had to jump out of bed, run downstairs, hit the bunkers. And I said to myself, I've got a whole year of this? I said, I didn't think I was going to make it. So that was the first night. Okay, so there I am, young, stupid. In my, that's the guard shack at the beginning of the bomb dump where people would go in and out and stuff. This is what Vietnam looked like around the area. Very mountainous. That's where they launched the rockets at us. And rice paddies. A lot of small villagers, and they were just out there. You can see some people out there working the fields and stuff. So it was actually it's a very beautiful country. If you ever go there, it's actually a really green, mountainous, and pretty country. You don't mind them shooting at you in those days. But I can say that we used to go out and deliver ammo out to the outlying bases on a deuce and a half. And yeah, it was, I always took my camera with me and took photos and stuff. So, and if you get over the into the jungle a little bit more, the whole area was covered with tiny little parachutes. They were all little flares they were shooting off, and the flares would come down. And the jungle would be covered with these little parachutes all the time. So, and here we are. This was basically my job for a year. Those are 500-pound bombs. Okay, they came in pallets. We had to take them apart, put the lugs in them, and our bombs didn't go off when they hit the ground. Our goal was not to have a bomb hit the ground and go off. The reason is those were 500-pound mines. They had a timer in the back, a sensor in the middle, and a fuse in the front, and a fin. And when they came off the plane, the fin deployed like an umbrella, slowed the bomb down, went into the mud, the rocks, the dirt, the jungle, whatever, and didn't go off. It sent out an electronic signal, which is at the, kind of like in the middle right here, the bomb. It was a sensor, and it would send out an electromagnetic field. And by how you set the bomb up, it would either detonate under two cars or trucks go by, or a boat go by. At some point, the thing would sense enough metal, and boom. And that's what it was for. They seeded the entire areas so the VC couldn't take heavy-duty stuff in there. Okay? So my job was building bombs every day in the sun. We used to have a large building around us, but it was, and my next story will tell you why it's not there. Now, you see that little set of buildings back there? This is one of the guard towers. That's a revetment, a dirt wall. This is where the landmines and concertina wire is. And that's what they call Dog Patch. That was a little Vietnamese village on the other side of the end of the runway where we were. So you can see we were quite close to the natives. And they all were very nice people, everyone I ever met. But of course, the snipers would sit in there and shoot at you because it's a village and it's wide open. So it was interesting because I'm glad they were terrible shots, because you literally could be standing there and you hear the bullet go by, and you'd say to the other guy, well, that's a big mosquito that just went by. And all the dirt would kick up in front of you. So yeah, they were always kind of sniping at us. And we had one guy every night that came out at night, and we used to work at night, and his job was to sneak through the concertina wire and count all the bombs. That was his job. We could hear the guard dogs barking, and we knew that he was around, but he never bothered us, and we didn't bother him. So that worked out well for both of us. And here's a series of revetment that I worked in. And you see that, let me see here. You see this pile of tin? You see this concrete foundation? There was a 2-story wooden building there when we started working. It's gone. It's gone completely, and you can see all the burnt stuff around on the revetment walls. Well, I'll tell you what happened. About 3 weeks after I got there, somebody dropped something in another bomb dump, and a chain reaction went off. And I was sitting there with my crew, and we were all sitting there building our little 500-pound mines. And the lifers, which we affectionately call them, the lifers, they come running down in their trucks and say, "Oh my God, you guys are still here! Run for your life! The bomb drops are going up." And I said, "You'd have to ask me twice." So I started running up the road, and I can still remember the sergeants yelling at us, "Go back and get the equipment." And we all looked at him and went, "You go back and get the equipment." And we boogied out of there. And for the next, I would say, 24 hours, 36 hours, massive explosions. You can actually go on YouTube and put in 1969, the thing bombed up, and there's actual videos of what was happening. I don't have to make it up, because you can go and watch it. And so as we were running, things were blowing up behind us, hurtling things hundreds of feet in front of us, luckily not detonating, because they didn't have their nose fuses in. And so it was about 24 hours, 36 hours of trying to get the heck out of Dodge and not get killed in the process. So let's see here. That's another shot of us working every day, bunch of bombs. There's my crew, one of my crew. That the guy standing on the ground is the crew chief, Everett. And that's what we did all day in the sun. We used to have a building. It was gone after the bomb dump went off. We couldn't find anything other than the tin on the roof. And it was out. We were out in the sun, and you can see that we got tanned real quick. Yeah. And we told people who came in, must wear your shirt and take it off only for 10 minutes at a time. They didn't believe us, and of course they would get total blisters on their back. They would be fried, have huge water blisters, and they'd get an Article 15 for damaging government property. So yeah, but those are, you can see that there I am right there. And you can see the sensors right there on the middle of the bomb. The lead bolts where they would hook them to the plane. And the fuse that would fold out like an umbrella. And the boosters are in here, and then you put a fuse in the bomb. And then it would detonate on when things happen. So we worked every day, rain or shine, in the rain, hot, sticky, humid. And we built racks upon racks. I can't believe how many bombs we must have dropped on Vietnam. You know, let's face it, it was a lot of bombs. And that was our job, just to constantly build bombs. And then they would come and pick them up in the evening, put them on the racks for the airplane, and then they would take them off to the flight line and drop them on the good old VC somewhere. Hopefully they would land and they'd get them later. We had an incident where one guy didn't want to be in Vietnam. Yeah, I think he went a little nuts, because he went out to the flight line, jumped up on the top, under the wing of the plane, pulled the wire on the bomb, spun the vane, armed the bomb, took a hammer, looked at the sergeant and said, "I want to go home." And the guy said, "You're going home." No problem. So I don't know what they did with him. So there's just a lot of stress with all the bomb. You're doing this constantly, and everything you touch can kill you. And then every night you're being rocketed, sniped at, mortared, and everything else. So this is us just working away. Now there's a picture of me working with the fuses. There I am, young, thin, hair. And that is Hammond, who's working with me there, and all these are boosters and fuses. So these things are like handling a large hand grenade. But, you don't care. So you have to do your job. And but when I first, after about 2 or 3 weeks after I got there, and before the bomb dump blew up, I was feeling pretty terrible. You get to a place, it's hot, humid, sticky, you're eating terrible food, you're scared. And if anybody ever tells you you're not scared in a war zone, they're lying, they've never been there. Because I readily admit that I was scared, you know what, many times. because you think you're gonna die, you get scared. Anyway, I didn't feel good, so I had to go to the doctor. So I went to China Beach doctor. And I was sitting there, and the doctor gave me some drugs to help me. And he said, I want you to go out in the waiting room and wait and see if it affects you. So I said, okay. I went out there, sat. And all of a sudden, this nice nurse walks up to me and says, would you mind standing over here? It's a Quonset hut. You know what a Quonset hut is? And so I said, okay. So I'm up against the wall of the Quonset hut. You know, all of a sudden, like here, they're turning every other chair backwards. They're turning that chair backwards. And I'm like, what the heck are they doing? And all of a sudden, I hear helicopters coming. Next thing I know, the doors fly open, and there's helicopters, and they're doing triage right in front of me. And these people these poor guys have bullets in them, their arms are blown off, there's blood everywhere, they're screaming, and these nurses are hustling around doctors and everything, and I'm from me to you watching this. At that moment in my life, I said, I am never going to be that sick. Never. I had to leave. I had to get out of it. So, but that actually trained me to think my job was to save these guys' lives. My job was to build weapons and bombs that they would use to make it safer for those people. And I took my job serious because you have to. So I felt like my contribution was to build the weapons that they needed to protect themselves. And that's what we did. And the old saying in the bomb dump in the Air Force is, if you without ammo, the Air Force is just another airline. So that was our statement. But anyway, that's what I did. There's about a 750. It's a 750-pound bomb. They had all kinds of them. Now this is what it looks like when a bomb dump blows up. Yeah, it'll get your attention really quick, you know. Bombs can go either off low order or high order. High order is when they go bang. Low order is when they go boom. They kind of crack open and burn. They don't really have a high blast effect. And a lot of these were high order, and some were low order. And they were just going on and on for hours and hours. And the biggest one I ever saw was that one. That's an airplane in a hangar. Okay? And I was about this distance away from it. I was on the other side of the runway. And a whole revetment went up. And I saw the blast coming at me. And so they had given me up. My barracks was near there. So I couldn't go back. And so I hit the ground, as anybody would do. And I saw the blast rain coming at me. I shut my eyes, opened my mouth, covered my ears for the effect. And when it hit, it slid me back about 5 feet. As you can see it coming. And that is a big explosion. And that went on for hours. Yeah, bombs going off and everything else. So that'll wake you right up. And there's shots of our hooches and stuff, and guys watching the bombs going off in the bomb dump. And you see the guy putting his hands over his ears. These guys they know that you don't want to lose your eardrums. So that happened in about 3 weeks after I got there, 3 or 4 weeks after I got there. So that's what happened to our office. Kind of blew the roof off, completely destroyed it. That's what a revetment looks like when all the bombs go off at one time. A big hole. And you can see those are truck tracks going into that hole. And that was right across from our revetment. And so, yeah, I think that was a pretty good blast there. You wouldn't want to be within a few miles of that one. So, yeah. There I am. What was our next job? Our next job was to pick it all up, clean it up. So we had to go and pick up all this live ammunition laying around. Well, these are all military rounds, and a lot of rounds are armed by inertia. When they take off, they are armed at a certain speed. So we didn't know which ones were armed and which ones weren't. So we just gingerly handled them. So that's a picture of me, and you can see the debris from the bottom. There's all pictures of debris, and that was a rocket. We're that full of 2.75 rockets. They all cooked off and went all over the place. And they all have warheads on them, and yeah, it was a good mess. And we had to spend months cleaning this thing up. The first thing we did was we took bayonets and we walked where the roads were and dug down and flipped the soil up, making sure there was nothing blown into the ground that we might step on. Then we would pick it up, if we found something, very gingerly pick it up with our fingertips, turn around, and there's a guy with an ammo box back there. We put it in the ammo box and keep going. The guy would take the ammo box, take it over to a burn pit, go inside, and get it away from us. And then they'd burn the ammo later. And we lost a couple of kids outside the dog patch. We have these bomblets. They look like small baseballs. They would pick them up and think they were baseballs, and they were armed, and they would blow up and kill them. So, yeah. And you can see what damage was done with the revetments collapsing in on the bombs. And all of this here, right down here, you know, those are those shiny goldy things. Those are 40mm grenades that you put on the end of a gun or a small tube. And they're probably all armed because they're armed with inertia. They were scattered everywhere. So we carefully pile those up. So it's a little nerve-wracking to do this, you know, especially for a kid that has nerves. I think this is on the side. That's some more rockets. This is all the ammo on the side. And this is some of the 500-pound bombs we found laying around that had just broken open and burned. This is a low-order explosion. Okay. We had a lot of ammo to clean up, a lot of bullets, a lot of rounds. There's some rounds. These are rounds that we found in the bomb dump that we had to collect, get rid of, burn, and stuff. So, yeah. This is a little sideways, but this is how we used to get around in the back of the truck. And in Da Nang, there was a takeoff and landing every 19 seconds. Either helicopter, airplane, anything. It was always flying around our heads and stuff. And one of the incidents I recall is that I was in the bomb tub here, and as you notice, remember we had the concertina wire in the landmines and then the little village. Well, there was a helicopter, Huey, coming over our heads. And as he came over our heads, across the landmine field, the rear rotor snapped off. And he looked up, and it became, you know, the centrifugal forces spun the body around, and the doors blew open, and all about 10 guys, about 200 feet in the air, well, and the chopper fell on top of them. And we couldn't get to them because they were in the landmine field in the concertina wire. So this 8-meter helicopter, rescue helicopter, they came flying real quickly. The guy lowered down, the guy jumped out, looked around, and went, they're all gone. And that was not good to witness that. So, yeah. Oh, we had entertainment. They brought bands in to the mosquito flick, we used to call it. That's the screen, and then they would bring bands in, USO, stuff like that, and they'd give us shows once in a while. That was one of the bands that they brought in. And then the monsoons hit. Haven't lived until you've been through a monsoon. You know, months and months of rain. And I thought it rained hard there. I've been in Miami. It rains even harder, I think, in Miami. But this is a constant drizzly rain, and it's just, you know, still warm, and it just day after day, and we're still building bombs and working on it. It floods everything, and it was very interesting. And these were our barracks. There's a 3-foot concrete wall up about 3 feet, and then all wood and screens and tin. That's where we stayed. No glass, you know, just it's so hot and humid, you wouldn't want it anyway. So that's what we had there. Okay. And then, so the bomb dump went off right after I got there. And then this all hit. And it was interesting because it's 100 degrees, it's bright blue sky, and all of a sudden your sergeant comes over and says, put your rain gear on. You go, why? You look out and the vertical black wall coming at you. It's amazing. It's just this rain. It just, all of a sudden it hits and it goes up your sleeves, it goes up your legs, and you just can't stay dry. And it does that instantly. And then it stays around for a while. Now here's this is Han. Han was a Vietnamese woman, and the Vietnamese women needed jobs, so we paid her to take the trash out, basically. You know, just help out around our little area. And I can still remember, she's a very nice girl, very nice woman. She had a kid, you know, was married and everything. And she was very nice to us because one day she said to me, I will come tomorrow. I go, okay, why not? She goes, oh, 10,000 VC up there in mountain, come down, shoot at you. I don't want to be here. I said, thanks for the warning. Yeah, you know, they knew what was going on. But, you know, I don't hold any animosity at all to the Vietnamese. They were nice people, and they've always been nice to me. And the circumstances of the war and everything, you know, it is what it is. So, there I am with my reel-to-reel tape and in the barracks, warm. So, that was my little outfit. I built the desk. I built the ammo box. The ammo box was my locker kind of thing with the food. My mom and my aunt would ship me food in boxes. And I had fresh food and stuff because the barracks because the chow hall was sometimes not very well, mystery meat. And so I had a supply of food that my aunt and my mother would send me and stick it in there, and also sneak me some Coors beer. Because Coors you couldn't find, you know, in the East. And all the Western guys, they said, oh, I had a 6-pack or 2 6-packs in that little refrigerator I managed to find at the PX. And the story is that there was a Mr. Wright who lived here with a chicken ranch up off of by the cemetery. I worked with him as a kid, and his had a nephew, and he said, yeah, he's in Vietnam. So I looked him up, and he was a Marine Supply Sergeant, Mr. Sergeant Wright. And I got over there, and it was a cool day, so I had my jacket on. And I see the sergeant right around. He said, oh, yeah. So the guy came out, and I told him I knew his uncle. Oh, good, great. You know, he's talking. And I says, I came to trade. He goes, what do you want? I said, what do you got to trade? And I reached in my pocket, and I pulled out a tall can of Coors. Put it on his desk right there at the counter. He looked at that. I've been in country for 9 months. He looked at that, and he went, what do you want? And I said, well, what do you got? He goes, you want a weapon? I said, no, I've got a weapon already. He goes, you want a Jeep? And I says, what am I going to do with a Jeep? He says, what do you need? I said, I need uniforms, fatigues, boots. I can't get them at the salon. No worries. So he gave me 3 sets of uniforms, 2 sets of boots, underwear, everything I needed in a box. Told this other Marine, take that guy anywhere he wants. Back to his unit. That was all for 1 can of Coors. Yep. Yeah. There I am, right there. Yeah, so, anyway, let's see, what else? Let's see what the next picture here. Oh, that's it. But I went to, one day I was in the barracks, and it was at night, and they normally attack us at night with the rockets and the mortars and stuff. And you can hear them walk them in. You know, they zero in on where they want to go. And I was sitting there in my bunk, and luckily I was at the bottom floor at that time, seniority, down at the low. And all of a sudden, they were landing in between the barracks, these Russian rockets. And let's face it, I was scared out of my mind. That was it. I'm gone. And so I jumped out of my bunk, hit the floor, and I remember putting my flak jacket on, but then I just went blank. I heard the flashes of light, the rockets going up, and I literally blacked out from fright. That's what the brain does. It overloaded and it just goes, good night, Louise. So I literally blacked out. And when I came to, I had my helmet on, and I was under the bunk, under my bed, on the floor, shaking. And when I crawled out, I noticed one thing, that my fingertips were red, raw. Why was that? I was trying to dig through the concrete floor, scratching. That's what I figured. And that's how scared you can get. And when you think you're going to go. So let's see here. Told you about that. I told you about most of the stuff here. And then I went R&R. You know, R&R is rest and relaxation. I went to Sydney, Australia. I didn't go to Thailand, or I didn't go to Hawaii. All the married guys went to Hawaii, made their wives, girlfriends, stuff like that. So I didn't go there. I just went to Australia. Had a fabulous time. The Australian people are great. They all liked Americans at that time. I went touring with a guy that took us out. You know, he picked us up in his Mini Cooper and took us out around the coast and down to Canberra and stuff. So we had a great time the whole week. I took a friend of mine with me, and that was very interesting. One little story I have is my sister and promised me that she would not marry Murrieta Rudy, until after I got back from Vietnam. That's cool, that's nice, okay. So one day, I'm sitting on a log getting mail. They're giving us our mail at the shop, and a box shows up. And I go, what's this? So it's from Loretta. I open it up, and it's full of popcorn. And in the popcorn, there's a bag, and I open up the bag, and it's a piece of wedding cake. And I said, oh, they didn't wait. I guess Rudy was just too convincing or something. But as I was pulled it up out, the guy next to me looked at it, and I'm looking at this cake. And it was still good, I could eat it. But he has, what's that? And I go, what's from my sister's wedding? And I can still remember him looking at me curiously and saying, they have popcorn at a Mexican wedding? Okay, yeah. So I managed to survive the rockets, the bombs, the snipers, all that stuff. And one day, I think the things, how many have been in an auto wreck and there's something terrible and everything's slowed into slow motion? Everybody sometimes has that. Well, one time I was working on that bomb dump there and standing on the bombs, and as I stood up, another guy said, oh, they got flares going on out there. It was at night. And I said, yeah, they got the flares. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I looked down, I saw this ball of light. It was about from me to the wall over there. And I'm standing above the revetment. And what that was a Russian rocket landing in front of me. And I'm standing looking at it. And everything went slow-mo. The sound was turned off. Everything was silent. And I looked over and I could see this thing getting bigger and bigger and bigger in slow motion. I could see the blast ring coming at me. And the spark was, and I said to myself in that instant, I said, this looks like a John Wayne movie. But the last thing I remembered before it hit me was that the air was stored right here. Then I felt, this is all in total silence, it felt like somebody grabbed my waist and threw me. And I was sailing through the air about 10 feet in the air. All in total silence. All I could hear was the shrapnel going past my ears. I heard this screech of metal, like that. And then I landed upside down in the bomb cases. And I jumped up and I said, oh, Everett, my crew chief, has gone around, picked up some bombs. He must have dropped something. He killed himself. Well, luckily, he picked up those bombs because the rocket landed in front of him and the bomb cases protected him from the blast. Then I heard them going over my head. So then I realized it was a rocket attack. So then I hit Mother Earth. And after about 10 minutes, they're all over with. And you get up and shake for a while. I'd never smoked a cigarette, so I just shake a little longer. And that was one of the interesting things. So anyway, when I decided my time was up and they didn't need my services anymore in the name, I was coming home and left and got back to Norton. And I can remember coming home and interesting coming home because as we know, World War II, people were decompressed over a period of time. You know, they were in Europe, they had to take a vehicle to some collection point, then they had to go to the coast, then they had to get to England, then they had to go to a boat to New York, and New York a train to California. Well, it took weeks or months to do that. And in that time, you could slow down. But not in our case. No. We were getting rocketed and shot at and everything, and then the next day you got on a plane and you were back in Murrieta. Which is kind of weird, because that's why I think a lot of Vietnam guys were kind of strange when they came back, because they didn't have a time to decompress. They didn't have a time to relax. And for a while, I didn't drive at night. I didn't go out at night. My mom there, she would say, why don't you go out and have a good time? No, you don't understand. You don't drive out there at night. That's bad. So, and another story is, I was visiting Mom in the house in Murrieta on 2nd Street, and I was laying there on the couch. And you know how you got kind of slowly go to sleep, or kind of half in and out, Mom's watching TV, and I'm slow. Well, I was laying there, and all of a sudden, I felt or heard and everything, a Russian rocket land out in the front yard. I knew I was in Murrieta, but that rocket landed right in the front yard. And she said, I came straight up and under the coffee table. And I said, yep. So you just kind of weirded out like that for a while. So anyway, so I came home and they made me a dispatcher and a motor pool driver for the last year I was in, and then got out. So, and I became pretty easy about things, but I was still a little bit upset and shook up. I started working for the U.S. Forest Service. I was a draftsman. I could always draw. And so I worked for them for 30 years in engineering. And I had a great life, and I had great parents, had a great wife, and traveled the world. And I consider myself extremely lucky. And I tell people, if I drop dead right now, don't cry. I've had a great life. So in that, if there's other vets in here that have not signed up for the VA, there's information there that might help you do that for medical or other things. And so that's my little story, and I'll ask for any questions. I'll see if I can answer. Any questions?
As I told you earlier, we honor your service, and I also wondered how long it took you to accept your life at that point. How long did it take you to decompress your words?
Well, it took me a while because I was very jumpy, and the doctors gave me Valium, and that stuff was terrible. That stuff is terrible. I mean, you ask somebody a question, and 5 minutes later you go, huh? No. I got off of that, and I didn't take any drugs when I was in Vietnam. No, I was not. There was two types of people in Vietnam: drug people and boozers. I was a boozer. I drank a lot of beer. I was never a hard liquor guy, and I never, the water was so terrible, yellow. In fact, it's hot, it's humid, and I don't drink a lot of soda. One day it was at like 2 in the morning. I'm thirsty as all hell. And I get up and I go to the mule, which is a water container for drinking. And it's empty. So I go to the showers, turn on the water, let it run for a while, and take a cup. And I can still remember this to this day. I looked at the cup and it was yellow. The water was yellow, it smelled. And I said, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life because I'm going to drink that water. I'm that thirsty. And I did. And so I can still remember that. But it took me a while, but
You certainly seem to have handled it beautifully.
sometimes I get, relive things and, yeah, but I have a good wife and I have a good family and stuff like that. And, that helps a lot, so, and you need to talk about it. People who don't talk about it, it only gets worse over a period of time. If you let it go, get it out, it's a lot better. It's like a sense of relief. that you could talk, because we were not treated well when we came back.
No, you weren't.
And the thing is that I remember is telling us not to wear uniforms, try to be low key, don't say we're a military, we're in Vietnam, and the way we were treated from the veterans organizations was terrible. They didn't want us. So I hold a lot of begrudgment about that, but yeah, it just took a while, and it's good that I got a job that I could concentrate on a whole new life and move on. I was very lucky in that sense, so yeah. Any other questions?
Mom,
Go ahead.
I have one. Well, first I want to thank you for this beautiful presentation, and I thank you for making us serve the country. But yeah, my brother was in Vietnam also, and I remember he gave me some stories. But I remember that you said they didn't give veterans treatment, and you just answered that. You guys had to be low key. I thought that was very sad.
Yeah.
Because I remember he was crying and saying, we worked so hard. And, I saw my best friends die in front of me. It was really sad. To this time, it still hurts me that our country didn't recognize the Vietnam veterans and the Vietnam soldiers after all that. And it really affected me. It still does. Because you were there and look how many times you faced death. And our country didn't recognize that. It really bothered me a lot. And it still does. It still does.
Well, I think the Vietnam guys got shortchanged in a lot of that, but everybody has their own story, and I think like I say, I consider myself lucky. I didn't have to go to the bush that much. I was out delivering ammo, but not unlike some of these guys who got really seriously wounded or damaged for life. And so it is very sad how we were treated. Now I think they made up for it in the Gulf War and some others. I think the memory of that helped in the Gulf War. The people coming, of course, they won in the 100-hour war. It was a lot easier. They had the firepower and stuff and a different enemy. But yeah, it was pretty bad how they treated us, and a lot of why they don't talk about us because of the way they were treated when they got back. So, yep.
I was wondering, how did they decide that you would be a really good guy to have the job that you got? I mean, what was your skill set?
What was my skill set? Well, I'll tell you how they did it. After basic training, just before we left for schools and stuff, they put us in a big room, and all these guys were in this room, and they said, okay, how many are married? And guys raised their hand out. Okay, how many smoke a lot? They raised their hand out. And then they said, okay, all the rest of you guys are 461s. And I said, what's a 461? Then they showed us movies of bombs going off of airplanes, and we went, oh man, this does not look good. So that's how they decided we were going to be. And then you just go to school, and they train you, so yeah. So, any other questions?
You said you had traveled the world. Have you been back to Vietnam?
No, I've not been to an Asian country. I've gone to Europe. My wife and I have traveled all over the world, gone to Europe many times and other places. And no, I have no desire quite yet to go back to Vietnam. I mean, it's very beautiful, and it's got beautiful resorts now, and it's kind of ironic. And the thing is that every Vietnam veteran has to go to the wall in D.C. And when you go to the wall, you cry. I mean, because my overall impression of the war afterwards is sadness, the tremendous waste of all those guys, 58,000 guys killed and more wounded, and even millions of Vietnamese. It was just an entire waste, and that's what makes me the saddest. Not anger or nothing like that. It's just the great sadness of the waste of what we did for those years, and we haven't come to terms with it even now. So, yep. Anything else? No? Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Robert.
Collectively, to you, generally, you guys, name McNamara.
McNamara was one of the whiz kids of Kennedy. And, yeah, they were, no, I mean, McNamara even, I don't blame anybody. It happened. I don't blame Jane Fonda. Everybody gets all pissed off at Jane Fonda. No, she was young, we were young. Everything happens for a reason. And I have no animosity about that. The people who went to Canada, they were braver than some of us. They left their families. They figured they'd never come back. So all these different elements that were good or bad, I have no blame for. It was at the time, and we did what we had to do. So, no, I don't have any dislike like that. So thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful. And we'll see you next time.